This slideshow will talk about how you might read a new poem. Here is Returning We Hear the Larks by Isaac Rosenberg. What I do first when I read a poem is I look at the whole thing, I look at the title and see what that makes me think, and then I read the poem aloud to myself. So I'm going to do that. Somber the night is, and though we have our lives, we know what sinister threat lies there. Dragging these anguished limbs, we only know this poison-blasted track opens on our camp, on a little safe sleep. But hark! Joy! Joy! Strange joy! Lo! Heights of night ringing with unseen larks, music showering our upturned listening faces. Death could drop from the dark as easily as song, but song only dropped, like a blind man's dreams on the sand by dangerous tides, like a girl's dark hair, for she dreams no ruin lies there, or her kisses where a serpent hides. Now I'm going to look for any words that I don't know, and also any words that I do know but that I think might be really significant. One of those is obviously going to be larks. So larks are birds, and I knew that already, but I don't know really anything about larks because we don't have them in the United States. They're English birds. They're songbirds, I think, because we're going to hear down here heights of night ringing with unseen larks. And it's a nice sound, we know, because joy, joy, strange joy. So I look up larks and I find out that it's a common meadow bird in England, and they have a really beautiful sound, and that it's a bird that often shows up in poetry, and particularly in poetry that's about joy, and that's about love, and that's about all the beautiful things that we think poetry is usually about. And so that's really good. Now I know something that I didn't know before that's going to help me understand this poem. And yet, when I begin to read the poem again, returning, we don't know returning from where, right? We're just returning from somewhere. We don't know who we is either yet, but we know that we're going to hear something beautiful, something fabulous, the larks. The first line of the poem, somber the night is. All right, that's standard grammar, but it's not standard sentence order. Normally we'd say the night is somber, but here the somberness is what shows up first in the sentence, and so that tells us that being somber is something that's really important for the poem. All right, so somber the night is. We finally get to the verb that renames what the night is, and so this is already a contrast to what we're expecting when we hear that there are going to be larks in the poem, which we hear in the title. And going on to the next sentence, though we have our lives. What does that mean? Though we have our lives? Again, that's strange. And it suggests, right, that here on this somber night, that they're lucky to have their lives, right? There's something in this poem that's already suggesting that the poet isn't taking having his life for granted. It's something that he has to note, and that he has to note really early in this poem. Why is that, I wonder? Oh, this is why. Because we know what sinister threat lies there. So something's going on in the place that the speaker is, that is a sinister threat that threatens their lives, and that everyone knows about. And so this is a poem where already we're seeing the speaker burdened under this terrible sense of doom, this terrible sense of fear, right? That the poet has managed to get that already into the poem in this little tiny short stanza. Moving on, I see that this next stanza seems to be really, really important. This is explaining something about that sinister threat that we've already learned, and so we see dragging these anguished limbs. So anguished again is another word that's really important. We only know this poison-blasted track opens on our camp. All right, let's stop there for just a minute and look at some of these things. as I'm looking at this line, I'm seeing that we're having to drag, right, the anguished limbs that we have here. We're dragging them as we go somewhere, where we don't know. Oh, here, to our camp. So this is telling us this is a military setting. Well, we know that because we're reading World War I poetry right now. But if we didn't know it, we'd know it now. Here's a camp. You drag your anguished limbs there. Where do you drag them? On a poison-blasted track, right? The poison-blasted track, this is a track that's gassed, maybe. It's a track that is probably shelled pretty much nonstop. Because of the nature of trench warfare, the two armies know really clearly where the other guys are, where they walk, where they bring their food up, where they keep their horses, right? In World War I, there were still horses being used because automobiles were fairly new. And so the other, they know when it's dinner time on the other side. Each side knows this about the other. And what that means is that they can very easily keep a continual bombardment going on the track that you use for bringing the food up from the rear where it's cooked. They know what times of days the men are washing and shaving, and so as a surprise attack, they might attack then. Now, I will say that the frontline soldiers have a great deal of sympathy for the folks on the other side who are suffering in exactly the same way that they have. But the people at the rear who are not suffering in that way don't have this sympathy at all, and so they'll get orders at the front that say, you know where they're walking to get back to camp after being in front lines, attack there. And so this, what we've got here in this stanza, what we've got the image of these poor soldiers already half dead, right? They're dragging themselves back, just trying to get to camp. And even this trudge back to camp is full of danger, but danger about which they almost can't bring themselves to care. All they're looking for here is this: a little safe sleep. And so they're exhausted, aren't they? They're completely worn out, and they're looking forward so much to just a little tiny bit of safe sleep. Are they going to get a lot of it? No. Are they going to get enough of it? No. Are they going to feel refreshed afterwards? Probably not, right? But at least there's something to look forward to, a little tiny bit of safe sleep. Now, here we get to the stanza that we looked at the very beginning. This is a stanza that jumped out at us after the very first time we read the poem through. It's got the larks in it again, and everything about it is unusual. So if we just begin to look at what's going on here, we'll see, first of all, some poetic language: hark, lo. All right, these are words that nobody really uses in regular conversation, and maybe in Shakespeare's day somebody did use those in regular conversation, but really even in Shakespeare's day they probably weren't going around harking and lowing all the time. So these are poetic words that make us stop and make us pause because they are poetic words. They're saying to us, "Hi, I'm a poem." Right? And if you remember, this is actually a hallmark of modernism, that the artwork says, "Hi, I'm a painting. Hi, I'm a music. I'm whatever it is that I am. I'm operating according to conventions that we know that work in this particular field." So here we've got two poetic words that could have been used by Shakespeare or Keats or any other poet from an earlier century, and they're kind of marking this stanza as operating according to somewhat different rules than the other stanzas of the poem have worked. All right? And the other thing you can note about them is that both hark and lo have exclamation points after them. See the exclamation points right in there? Those exclamation points, an exclamation point is a really hard punctuation mark. So some punctuation marks, like a comma, for instance, give you a little bit of a pause as you're going on through. And we all know that we use commas in a sentence if we want our reader to pause at that place. A period is a pretty hard stop, right? In fact, it's called a full stop in England instead of being called a period as we call it here. And it brings you to a full stop. If you get to the end of a sentence, like music showering our upturned listening faces, stop. You stop, okay? And so that's a pretty hard stop too. but an exclamation point. An exclamation point is used to indicate excitement, joy, surprise, right? And so what happens is it's an even harder stop than a period, even when, as in these cases, these words are starting off the sentence that they're part of. So you get but hark, long pause, lo, long pause before you go on to the next word. Look at what's going on in this top sentence here too. You have but hark, so strange word, exclamation point, joy, dash, joy again, dash, strange joy, period. All right? Now, everything about this sentence is telling us stop, stop, turn around, stop and listen, pay attention. Joy is repeated twice by itself, and then we hear that it's strange joy. And we might well believe that it's strange joy, mightn't we? Because we already know from what's come before in the poem that there's not a whole lot of joy in this speaker's life right now. But so this is a sentence that keeps having these really strong stops in it. It breaks up the forward motion of the poem. The poem was moving along pretty well, dragging these anguished limbs. We only know this poison-blasted track opens on our camp on a little safe sleep. Now, the first two lines of that stanza are in jam, so they kind of flow into each other. There is a dash after camp, and so we get a nice hard pause there. But it's nothing like the 1, 2, 3, 4 pauses that we get in the first line of the very next stanza. And so this has an effect on us as readers. It has actually a physical effect on our bodies as we're reading through the poem. And then we get in the next line we get something that's a little bit longer. Lo, heights of night ringing with unseen larks. Now, ringing is an unusual word to use about bird song, but this suggests, ringing bells maybe would ring, right? And also when you think about a sound that's echoing off everywhere, then you might call that ringing too. And so what we have is the feeling that the night is like, I don't know, it's like a dome, it's like a cathedral, it's something, it's high, whatever it is, and all around the ceiling of this night is echoing this bird song everywhere that he hears. And then he goes on to say, music showering our upturned, listening faces. So the music is falling down. Everyone's face has lifted up to see, and the music is falling down on the faces of all these folks as they're listening. Now, I'll note, we talked about the first line being strongly broken up with all these pauses. They're called caesuras, would be the poetic term to use for it. The second line has one caesura after lo, right? You get a really hard stop after lo. And then you've got this sort of flowing rest of the line, heights of night ringing with unseen larks. But there's a period at the end of that. So there's zero enjambment in this stanza. That has not been true of either of the stanzas before, right? If you look at the first stanza, okay, sure, the first line ends with a strong period. Somber the night is. But then look what happens. It starts with and. This continues the thought somehow. So it's making a connection where there isn't any grammatical connection. And though we have our lives, comma, we know what sinister threat lies there. The lack of punctuation after no enjambs that line with the one that comes after and kind of links them up, and so you get this sort of lengthened expression there. But here, what we've got is we've got stoppages. Okay, so what does stoppages mean? I mean, it could mean you've broken down, right? My car has stopped and I can't go any further, or it could mean something has happened that made me change my mind, right? And that's what this is here. Everything was awful. We were just looking forward to getting to bed for a little bit of safe sleep, even though it wouldn't be enough, and everything is miserable around us, and we barely got our lives. But then, joy, right? Joy in the sound of the lark. And so you're getting the image of this most horrific place that a soldier has ever been, that a human being has ever been. And it's been transformed by this natural thing, the skylark singing. And now we can return again to the idea of showering that we've got right here. Death could drop from the dark, we hear, in this sentence, as easily as song. Now, let's note a couple of things about that. First of all, we've got enjambment there, right? Death could drop from the dark as easily as song. That's all one phrase, that's all one idea. It's broken up in two poetic lines, but nevertheless, the enjambment that we had at the beginning of the poem is back. And what's in this enjambed line? Well, it's something else that could shower us, right? Something else that could drop from the dark. And what this is death, not song. But, and so you see there in this poem, we have a lot of these lines that start with what I'm sure your high school English teacher told you you must never, never start a sentence with, which is a conjunction. But, but is the conjunction of reversal. But, song only dropped. Okay? Song only, not death, right? Dropped from the sky. Like a blind man's dreams on the sand by dangerous tides. This is an interesting image, isn't it? This is an image that we want to think more about. What could that mean? A blind man's dreams on the sand by dangerous tides. On the one hand, right, you're dreaming on the sand, you're lying on the beach. You, in this case, the man is blind, but it could also be a person with their eyes shut, right? There you are lying there and you can dream beautiful dreams. This is a dangerous thing to do, though, right? Because you're dreaming, you're dreaming by dangerous tides, and not only that, it's not that you have your eyes shut; it's that you're blind. You can't see. You can't open your eyes and see something there, and so here we are, all of us walking on these poison blasted tracks, going back to our camp, and with all of us standing stock, we've stopped, right? Stock still. And our faces turned up toward the skylark that's up there singing the beautiful song. And then we have more metaphors, two more metaphors, okay? One is the metaphor of the girl's dark hair, for she dreams no ruin lies there. Okay. Now I find this a little bit baffling. The song is dropping like the girl's dark hair. But what kind of hair is it? Hair that she drops because she dreams that no ruin will lie there. In other words, that nothing bad will happen if she does this. So you can imagine the girl turning her hair upside down, a girl with long dark hair. She turns her head upside down and all that long hair flows over. Again, she's blinded by it, isn't she? She doesn't know. She's exposing herself to danger by doing this. But it's also this movement of freedom and luxuriousness, right? You know, the way that you might toss your hair over forward over your head in the summer and when it's hot. When you've washed your hair, right? If you've washed your hair and you're outdoors, you might do that. Turn your hair upside down. So it's this luxurious, movement that you make, but only when only something that you only do if you don't expect anything bad will happen because of it, right? And then we have this last line. Now this is her kisses where a serpent hides, right? Or is another conjunction. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the poem, starting a sentence where it's not supposed to. But or her kisses where a serpent hides. Now this is picking up on, you know, sort of long-standing traditions in English literature of saying, oh, women are dangerous, women women do bad things, and so here, you know, going back to the Adam and Eve story, you know, the woman is the one who brings sin into the world, is you know, according to James Joyce in one of his texts. But here the serpent is hiding inside the kiss, waiting. So inside the beautiful thing is danger and death. So this is a poem. If we look at the poem overall, this is a poem that says, we're in a rotten place. Bad things are happening to us. In the middle of the bad things that are happening to us, something beautiful, something wonderful. And I think that we'd really like to take that as, there's some redemption, even in the middle of this horrible place, right? But that redemption is immediately turned back on itself, that there's danger in this beauty, that this beauty makes us stop, this beauty makes us pause, this beauty makes us put ourselves in danger. Why do we do that? Are we stupid? No, because we need that beauty so much. We need that beauty so much that we endanger ourselves in order to take it in. And so why would we dream on the sand by dangerous tides? Because sometimes you've got to dream on the sand. Why would we why would we kiss when a serpent could hide there? Because sometimes you need that beauty in your life. And so this is a really beautiful poem. It's one of my favorite poems, in fact, and I hope you all like it too. But it's a poem that's really deep. It's got this obvious turn in it, but then it's got this other more subtle turn at the end that really complicates the situation of the speaker here, who's walking through all this danger and death and war.